and we look forward to your questions.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Cape.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaplan-Myrth. We will continue with the discussion with Mr. Williams for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today we've heard from quite a few experts, obviously, looking at the whole convoluted, complicated situation that we're in, looking at a big merger here in Canada. One of the things that I start thinking about is how do we get the fundamentals right? And we're looking at really competition as a whole across Canada. Why is competition important? Because when we have competition, Canadians have choices, they have better service, and they have better prices. And that's evidently, especially going through high inflation, what should be top of all of our minds as parliamentarians right now. When we look at this, we hear from academics and from experts on Competition Act saying that we've done this or we've done the other. The most alarming stat or fact out of this case that concerns me is that Rogers, in looking to go and buy an asset or a competitor, was given carte blanche in picking who its competitor would be. So Rogers, being the #1 market shareholder in telecommunications in all of Canada, was allowed to freely go, and Shaw gave them the full authority to go pick who their competitor would be, or maybe more importantly, to decide to pick who they wouldn't be dealing with. And so in talking to Globalive, who's here, I know Distributel is another one, and there might have been others. Mr. Lacavera, in your own words, do you feel that the process of the divestiture process was fair?
Thank you for the question. The process was, from our perspective, secretive, closed door. We were not included in it. Our offer in the end was $900 million higher than the offer that Roger accepted. But that's simply because we have a track record of actually competing. And when a company like Rogers is able to select who their competitor is, of course, their job actually, from the ownership and leadership's perspective, is to select the weakest possible competitor they can that will get approved by government. And so this is why, again, we really think government needs to intervene and oversee a fair and open and transparent process.
And it wasn't just yourself. There was, so Distributel, as far as you know, was another competitor. So there was others.
Yes. Our understanding is their offer was essentially even
weren't
higher
engaged at all with that divestiture.
That's our understanding. And
again, I think a lot of Canadians would be alarmed to hear that in this deal, when we're looking at side deals, there was a lot of other aspects to this. Mr. Klass, you talked about, I guess, the share of complementary resources that Videotron would have had with Rogers at the time. In your opinion, can Videotron achieve success with freedom without the complementary resources that they have access to, I think, in different markets in Canada?
I think that it puts Videotron in a difficult position, the fact that it becomes reliant on Rogers for certain types of access. So first of all, the nature of those access agreements, we don't know the exact facts. It's going to have to go to the CRTC to see just how sort of preferential or discriminatory they are. But the fact is that Videotron is relying on Rogers to provide those types of services. So that gives Rogers, I think, a substantial measure of control. They're essentially inviting Videotron into the club, right? And so I think part of the Competition Bureau's stance in this market is that a maverick competitor is the best way to achieve competition, a competitor that does not move with the flock. And in your initial question you asked, how do we get back to basics on getting competition and good prices in this market? And one of the answers to that is removing the dominance of the original providers, right? These are companies that have been in the market for 30 years, Rogers, TELUS, Bell, and they are firmly in control of it. They've maintained a 90% share over even the 10 years of a fourth carrier policy. So I think it's very important that you have a competitor that's not reliant in this way on one of the dominant providers, right?
Mr. Lacavera, you have some experience from this back from your Win Mobile days. So I'll ask you if you agree with TekSavvy in saying that the special network access rates Rogers have given Videotron is illegal under the Telecommunications Act.
We don't know the specifics right now, but certainly it would seem that during the Competition Tribunal proceedings, they were very clear about how favorable the rates were. And I do think it's pretty clear that Videotron is going to need those preferred rates in order to be able to compete outside of its core cable footprint. They have the benefit of network in Quebec. They don't have the benefit of any brand equity or any network outside of Quebec.
Do you feel that you could have been offered those same rates if you were engaged with them, or do you think that was a special offer?
I think that Rogers doesn't want to see any real competition in the market, and so I think that we would have been challenged to get access to those rates, but in their desperation to try to get the merger approved, we don't really know what Rogers would have offered, and what they ultimately did offer to Videotron needs to be drawn out now in a proceeding with the CRTC to see if it actually is undue preference and illegal.
Mr. Kaplan-Myrth, if the CRTC approves the challenge of Rogers' rate deal with Videotron and declares it illegal under the Telecommunications Act, what does the Competition Tribunal's decision look like, given how much emphasis is put on the rate and their approval of the merger?
If the CRTC ends up, throwing out that deal that ends up being illegal, then it wouldn't be able to form the basis of Videotron's ability to compete on wireline, wherever that deal is being offered to them. And again, we know very little about that deal, so presumably out west, at least. So Videotron wouldn't be able to use existing wholesale regulatory rates, regulated rates, to compete. They wouldn't be a viable competitor on that, and it would mean that the Bureau, the Tribunal's analysis about Videotron's ability to offer bundled services wouldn't be valid anymore, wouldn't be correct.
Thank you very much. MP Dong for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Also, thanks to the witnesses for coming today. My first question, the line of question, goes to Mr. Lacavera. Mr. Lacavera, you talked about how anti-competitive the remedy was, but I can't help to think that, to ask, how would freedom under Globalive be different from being, freedom under Quebecor? And, some of the differences, practical differences you'll put in place or your proposal could be, that would be beneficial to consumers.
Thank you for the question. So I did not say that the remedy was anti-competitive. What I said was the merger is anti-competitive and must be stopped. Then what we're recommending is that the government oversee a fair and open and transparent process to determine who the right acquirer